Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us for State of Texas in Depth. While it may be the middle of the summer, Texas lawmakers were hard at work with hearings on Planned Parenthood, as well as concerns about Sandra Bland's death in jail. Elena Rocha from our partner, the Texas Tribune, has the latest.
The circumstances surrounding the arrest of Sandra Bland, the woman who was later found hanged in a county jail, are generating more questions than answers. And this week, state lawmakers got involved. That story tops your Texas political roundup.
Step out of the car.
No, you don't have the right.
Step out of the car.
You do not have the right to do that.
I do have the right.
On July 10th, a state trooper arrested the 28-year-old woman in Prairie View, about an hour northwest of Houston. 3 days later, an officer found Bland dead, hanging in her jail cell. The dashcam video released Tuesday raised many concerns about the officer's conduct and the merits of Bland's arrest. Lawmakers ensure that the agencies involved will be transparent throughout the case, now being treated as a murder investigation.
No one should jump to any conclusions. Wait for the investigations to be completed, and then see what the facts have to say.
Meanwhile, Bland's faith community, family, and friends are trying to keep the peace through prayer. But Sunday, before a packed church crowd in Prairie View, prayer turned to frustration.
In the county that is known for racial profiling and injustice behavior toward individuals of color. Oh yes, I said it today. I want to go on the record. They have made it known, but I have to pray for the community today, for hope and for healing.
Shifting to presidential politics, a new contender could have an impact on two Texas candidates. Ohio Governor John Kasich's entry into the Republican presidential race means there are now 16 candidates vying for that nomination. The crowded GOP field is watching the polls to see who will rank in the top 10 and get to participate in the first debate next month. The latest national survey indicates that both Rick Perry and Ted Cruz could be on that stage. I'm Elena Rocha for the latest developments in the Sandra Bland case, Donald Trump's visit to the Texas border, and so much more. Visit us online at texastribune.org.
And with 2016 politics rapidly approaching, we want to see how the state parties are prepping for the Super Tuesday focus. Ahead, Josh Hinkle's one-on-one interview with Texas Republican Party Chairman Tom Meckler when State of Texas in Depth returns. Well, welcome back, everyone, to State of Texas in Depth. Early next March, Texans will head to the polls and select their candidate for President of the United States. This year, Texas will play a much bigger role in the primary since we are the first big state in the country. That could create new challenges and opportunities for parties in the state. So our Josh Hinkle sat down with Tom Meckler, the chairman of the Texas Republican Party.
So when we're talking about the future of Texas, a lot of people have been concerned about voter fraud, whether it actually exists here in the state. Lawmakers have certainly talked about it the last couple of sessions. Where do we stand right now with the state of voter fraud?
Well, it's from what we can tell, based on news reports, it's an extensive amount of voter fraud. Recently, National Public Radio did a story down in the Valley. Interestingly enough, the state chairman for the Democratic Party, Mr. Hinojosa, is representing clients actually profiting off of voter fraud allegations. There's been an election that's been a new election because of voter fraud down in the south part of Texas, and basically because of the fact that there was some election fraud that took place. Then you have Hillary Clinton, the presumed nominee for the Democrats, prior to her, she's obviously got to be coronated first by the Democrat Party, but she comes to Texas and Houston and says that it's a phantom problem. And yet we have all this proof that it actually does exist. I mean, the stuff in South Texas included offering voters hits of cocaine to go get them to vote, I mean, and alcohol and cigarettes. I mean, it's pretty serious stuff, and the Democratic Party is profiting off that while at the same time saying it doesn't exist. So yeah, it's a problem. I mean, Republicans believe that every vote counts and everybody ought to be, elections ought to be fair. We certainly, I think most people in the state of Texas and across the country would agree that this democracy is established on the importance of the fact that we have fair and honest elections, and yet that's taking place in Texas. It's been going on for many years.
Before the amount of time that lawmakers have spent discussing this issue in recent sessions, do you feel like it's a big enough problem, or is it kind of isolated to some instances just around the country in certain areas?
No, well, are you talking about in Texas itself? Or?
The nation and Texas specifically.
And I can't really speak to other states. I can speak to some things in Texas. We've had, we spent a lot of effort to maintain ballot integrity teams that go in there to oversee election processes. We've raised issues with some of these election judges as to things that are improper, people that have set up booths sometimes that go in there and violate the law by voting for other people. That's not things that are supposed to be happening, but they happen in just about every general election in Texas. And, you know, I've never heard of a Republican doing any of that. It's always been confined to the Democratic Party and the Democrats. So
let's look at the other side of voters. You obviously have to have a lot of outreach before an election. What are you guys doing to reach out to potential minority voters?
Since I've been state chairman, it's been a huge priority to me. My predecessor, Steve Minister, who was a phenomenal chairman for nearly 5 years, also had begun the process of reaching out to minority communities in the engagement process. We're taking that to another level under my leadership. We have minority engagement directors that are working with that. It's a natural fit for us, Josh, because the minority voters, most of them, a preponderance of them, are conservatives. We're a conservative party, and so it's a perfect fit. And so what we are in the process of doing is taking our message to them to say this is what we are, this is what we believe. And I trust that they are going to say, well, we're really not a Democrat, we're Republicans. Interestingly enough, the Democratic Party and the Democratic candidates have weighed, you know, they basically, all their success is being lifted or laid down on top of minorities. And they don't do much for minorities. When you look at the session, they're more interested in taking care of the NEA, the National Education Association, than they are about helping poor minority communities and families in terms of like school choice, as an example.
Do you think we'll start seeing more Republican minority candidates in the next couple of election cycles?
In the Republican Party? Absolutely.
Yes.
I think that's the case. And we are working with county chairs throughout the state to help bring that to pass. And so we understand that you can't show up in October before the November election and say, hey, please vote for us. Governor Abbott and his wife, Cecilia, did a phenomenal job during their campaign to build a lot of bridges with the minority, the Hispanic community. We intend to continue to build on that progress. So,
what other kind of outreach are you working on beyond minority outreach?
Well, next generation, which is the young people. The next generation is a big part of our engagement process. We are in the process, we are continuing to expand that. We've had something going with respect to that. But as a state chairman, we look for opportunities to hire younger people into the party and to bring them in and to basically teach them everything we know. The people have been doing this for a long time, been involved for 30 years. My goal is to, everything that I've learned through those 30 years is to pass on to the next generation.
With the presidential election and the Republican field, we have two Texans that are always talked about, Governor Perry and Senator Cruz. What are your thoughts on those two gentlemen as candidates?
Well, we actually have 6 candidates that have Texas ties. Mm-hmm. Carly Fiorina is also one. Senator Santorum has a business here in Texas. Of course, Rand Paul went to school at Baylor, and his family's from Texas. Right. Jeb Bush obviously has deep ties, and then, of course, as you mentioned, Governor Perry and then Senator Cruz. So we think it's great that Texas has this kind of impact on the presidential election. There's 155 delegates coming from Texas to the National Convention, and I would hope that all those candidates come to Texas and come often to work to get the vote. It's going to be decided, the allocation of those delegates will be decided by the primary. So it's important for them to be in Texas if they'd like to contend for our delegates. And the more often they come, the better it is for us as a state.
How important is the Texas primary this time around for candidates?
It's huge. This is probably one of the biggest elections in terms of Texas having an impact on a national level and picking the nominee. This is going to be one of the best years ever, because March 1st is the day for that. There'll be like a Super Tuesday. We'll be a part of that. And so the other side of that is there's 4 states that can go before March 1st, and they have to go within the month prior. So it's all going to happen quickly, all around the same time. So Texas will be a big factor in the outcome of that nomination process.
Seeing our Republican governor go through his first session in that leadership post, is there any words of advice you might have for a fellow Republican?
A fellow Republican in terms that runs for office, or?
For him.
Oh, well, I think Governor Abbott has just been a phenomenal governor already. He's already established himself as a great leader in the state, and I couldn't be more proud of what he's done and give him great applause.
Anything that you would like to see him work toward for the next session?
Well, I think, you know, he has he's had priorities that were established as he ran on. A lot of those got taken care of in this session. I think some of them will be carried over into the next session, and so he'll continue to work on those priorities. So,
is there anything else you would like our viewers to know about what the party is doing right now, or what you expect to be doing?
Well, the Republican Party, obviously being the dominant party in Texas, it's a reflection of our state. And you know, for those that have never considered themselves Republicans, we are the conservative party. There really is a difference between Republicans and Democrats. The biggest difference is political philosophy. We are the party that believes in personal responsibility and limiting government, and most of the Texans believe that also. And so we believe that our party does accurately reflect the values of the individuals and the citizens of Texas.
Is it particularly challenging here in Travis County?
Well, it's another opportunity for the Republican Party to take our message to the voters.
All right, we'll leave it at that then.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
And with regard to the chairman's comments about voter fraud, we reached out to the Texas Democratic Party. Deputy Executive Director Manny Garcia responded with this: "It is a shame that on the eve of the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, the Texas Republican Party platform calls for its repeal, and Republicans in Texas have worked towards that hateful goal for years. It isn't surprising that the Republican Party is resorting to flagrant allegations and smear tactics to desperately divert attention away from weeks of embarrassing headlines about Republican corruption and racism." This week, we will be watching the first Republican presidential debate. There will actually be 2 debates in Cleveland, a primetime audience for the top 10 candidates, according to national polls, and a debate earlier in the day for the other 6 major Republican candidates. Senator Ted Cruz will likely be in the primetime debate. Former Texas Governor Rick Perry is on the bubble. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas in Depth. And remember, you can join us every Sunday morning in the 8:30 half hour for a broader look at Texas politics. We're coming right back with more news and weather, including the very latest on the Ken Paxton indictment. Stay with us.